Today's tale will be about a little girl, a tragedy, and the example of dogged determination. So stick around. Hello, and welcome to the Chain Smoking Writers channel. Here's where we share the myths, legends, and histories of the Chinese people from the first creation myths to the last imperial dynasty. And today, we are going to share the story of little Jing Wei and her determination to fill up the ocean. Of the 4 daughters that Yanti had, the youngest was the most adorable and the most lively one, and she was also Yanti's favorite. Her name was Nuwa, not to be confused with the goddess that created humanity, Nuwa. Nuwa basically translates to little girl or young girl, and she was the favorite of Yanti. Now Yanti, being the leader of the people, the Red King or Flame King, he was a very busy person, and so he did not have much time to spend with his family. Every morning before dawn, Yanti would travel out millions of miles into the Eastern Sea to direct the rising of the sun. And when he returned from that trip, he would be traversing across the land to find new herbs and to discover new crops for his people to grow. And when that was done, there comes the business of administrating to his people and organizing agricultural efforts. So as you can see, he's a man with great responsibilities and a lot of work waiting for him. That's why he does not really have much time to spend with his family. Now, being the sweet and considerate little girl, Nuwa did not always pester her father for attention, like many kids would. Instead, she will often go out, playing on her own. She will often be seen with like flowers in her hair, in a pure white dress, running through the woods, frolicking in the streams. And all manners of creatures loved her, and they kind of protected her from harm. I don't know, but when I read this part of the story, it kind of like reminds me of the old Disney Snow White animation, when she was singing with the birds and talking with the rabbits and the squirrels in the woods. Yeah, that kind of image kind of popped up into my head when I imagined Nuwa. And little Nuwa would often go to the shores of the Eastern Sea to watch the sunrise. And every time the sun popped over the horizon, she would give a great cheer, feeling proud of the fact that it was her father that directed this miracle that happened every single day. And little Nuwa wanted to know how his father directed this miracle every single morning. And she wanted to see, where his father worked and where all these things take place. Kind of like, bring your daughter to work day kind of stuff. So little Nuwa pleaded with Yanti to bring her with him on one of his trips to the Eastern Sea. But Yanti had to decline her request because the sun rose in this place called Guixu, which was more than 1 billion miles out into the Eastern Seas. And it was extremely hot there. The heat would be unbearable even for most mortal men, let alone a little girl. So he had to decline his beloved daughter because she would not be able to handle the trip. Of course, little Nuwa was despondent and sad that her father declined her request. So she moped around a bit, sulk and mope and sulk, a kid being a kid. But that didn't last long, As with all little princesses in fairy tales, she soon came up with a cunning plan. She thought that, if Yanti would not bring her to Guixu, she would make her own way there and see for herself. So little Nuwa went to the shores of the Eastern Seas and she got onto her little boat and she paddled, ever eastwards out into the ocean. And the sea was calm and the sea breeze was blowing gently, and soon she lost herself in the sounds of the waves that were rocking her little boat gently. and lost in the smell of the sea breeze that tells the story of the oceans, and lost herself in the azure skies that stretch on forever into the horizon. And she was lulled into a sense of peace and serenity, and she just let her boat drift with the waves. And before long, she fell asleep, being so comfortable and breezy and warm with the waves rocking the little boat like a cradle. She soon fell asleep. But the sea is not the gentle beast that she imagined. She was rudely awoken by heavy waves crashing into her little boat like so many thousand mallets, and winds that were howling and cutting her like so many blades and knives, and the dark clouds that covered the sky. The usually bright blue sky is now all dark and black and ominous. And through all this adversity, little Nuwa bravely steered her little boat, cutting through the currents and dodging all the big waves that threatened to capsize her. And she soldiered on despite all the adversity that was coming at her, everything that nature and the ocean was throwing at her. But the ocean does not give up easily. And soon day turned to night, and little Nuwa, being the little girl that she was, slowly lost her strength and her stamina to continue the fight against nature. And the stars in the skies closed their eyes to the tragedy that was about to unfold before them. With a final mighty crash, a large wave finally broke the little boat to pieces and threw little Nuwa into the sea. No one could hear her desperate cries for help, over the roars of the unfeeling waves. And no one could see her desperate struggles as she was sucked deeper and deeper into the deep dark depths of the ocean. And in her final moments, all she could think of was a desperate wish that she could see her father again, that Yenti would come and bring her home. And after God knows how long, time seemed to crawl to a stop. But little Nuwa, the little princess, started to regain a kind of consciousness, and she felt like she was coming back to life. But great changes were also happening within her body at the same time. Her hands started to morph into wings, and her feet changed and transformed into bright red claws, and her ruby red lips, protruded and hardened into a pure white beak. The flowers in her hair became a colorful feather crown on the head, and the pure white dress that she had on turned into the deepest, darkest black feathers that covered her entire body. And with a final push and a final struggle, she broke through the waves and flew into the sky. Little Nuwa had morphed into a little black bird that shot through the sky, out of the waves, and her cries of "Chewy, chewy, chewy" cut through even the loudest and most persistent roars of the ocean. It's like a plea or angry defiance against whatever had happened to her. When Yenti found out about what happened, of course he was aghast at the loss of his beloved daughter. And one day, while Yenti was sitting under a tree, mourning the loss of his daughter, a little black bird, started flying above him, and wouldn't stop circling him, and wouldn't stop, calling, "Chewy, chewy, chewy." It wouldn't stop calling, and very soon Yenti got extremely annoyed. I mean, this was a man in grief, grieving for the loss of his daughter, and this bird was like chirping non-stop and being a nuisance. And in a fit of rage, Yenti picked up his bow and was about to shoot this little bird when one of his trusted advisors stopped him. He was like, "My lord, you can't do that." that is your daughter come back to life in another form. Having heard that, Yanti threw down his bow and he broke down in tears. And he reached out his hands, and the little bird landed in his palms and nestled itself comfortably in his warm palms. And with his daughter in the form of a bird nestled in his palms, Yanti lamented, "Oh, when the Jing Wei bird cries, the heavens and earth move. The mountains and trees are still green, but man have become beast. My daughter can no longer speak, and her father is deep in grief. Why are the seas still not filled and leveled? Why do the waves still rage on? May generations of my descendants never again go into the sea. May generations of my tribe and people be proud and contented on land." When the little bird heard her father's lament, she swore vengeance upon the ocean that took her life. She swore to fill up the sea and level the ocean just as her father has lamented. It was at this time that story started to spread and people found out about what happened to Yanti's daughter, the adorable little Nuwa. And having seen the little black bird and having heard his cries of chewy, 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 they decided to name it, taking reference from her cries, they decided to name it the Jing Wei Niao, with characters that translates roughly to a spirit guardian, in remembrance of her dogged determination and her grievances against the sea. Now, having made the vow to seek vengeance against the ocean, the little Jing Wei bird made a nest for herself in this place called the Fajiu mountain or the Fajiu San. And every morning before dawn, the little Jing Wei bird would pick up pebbles and twigs and all sorts of debris, and she would make the trip all the way to the ocean and throw these debris and twigs and pebbles into the sea in an attempt to fill that up. And she would continue these round trips back and forth all day, from dawn till dusk into the night, before she would head back to the nest to rest, and she would start this whole process, all over again the very next day, day after day, week after week, month after month, years after years. Under the scorching sun, beneath the pouring rain, in the face of snow and sleet, the little Jing Wei bird, small as it was, it never wavered from its mission to fill up the sea. The ocean initially just ignored the little bird. I mean, the small little bird, a vast ocean. I mean, it was less than a bug to this vast ocean, so it just ignored the little bird. But over time, the unceasing disturbances, the unceasing throwing of debris and twigs and pebbles into the waters, it started to get really annoying. I mean, imagine you are just sitting there minding your own business and a mosquito or the fly started buzzing around you non-stop. I mean, you could ignore it for a while, but if it continued on for years and years and years non-stop, it gets annoying. Yeah, it gets annoying. So the ocean roared to this little bird and say, you insignificant little thing, what do you think you could have achieved? I am a vast ocean and you are nothing but a little bird. What do you think you could achieve even if you continued this for 1,000,000 years? And the little Jing Wei bird replied, "You killed me. You took my life. You made my father sad. I will fill you up as per my oath. And I will fill you up even if it took me 1,000,000 years, even if it took me 100 million years. I will continue without stop and I will fill you up." Many years later, the little Jing Wei bird married a petrel. I hope I pronounced it right. It's a form of a tube-nosed seabird. And the couple gave birth to many batches of little birds, and these little birds bred and gave birth to even more birds. So what started as Jing Wei alone, one lone little bird carrying debris and throwing it into the sea, became a small flock of birds, throwing debris into the sea. Then it became a few flocks of birds, and then a few huge flocks of birds, and it developed to the point where it was an unceasing stream of birds that's carrying debris from the land and throwing it into the sea. And the ocean, got worried by this time. It's like, okay, now there is a real possibility that it's going to get filled up, with this unceasing train of birds that's like dumping anything they can find into the sea. And so what happened was that the ocean started, creating bigger waves and started pushing all the dirt and debris back onto land, onto the shores. And these dirt and debris that the ocean pushed back slowly became marshes, marshland, and tidal flats. And before long, people started settling on these new pieces of land, and started converting them into farmland. And it was amazingly fertile. These tidal flats and these converted marshland were amazingly fertile for agriculture. Although the little Jing Wei bird ultimately did not manage to fill up the oceans, but her dogged determination and her unwavering sense of mission has been held up over the ages, as an example to the Chinese people. This is a very popular story that parents will tell to their children to instill a sense of determination into them. Little Jing Wei was later also deified as a goddess of the sea, as a kind of a guardian of the seafaring people, and people will always look to her for inspiration when facing insurmountable odds. Although she's not commonly worshipped anymore today, but I believe thousands of years ago, or maybe even hundreds of years ago, she would have shrines and temples dedicated to her along the coastal regions of China. Now, I hope you enjoyed the story. If you did, please hit the like button, and we'll move on to the bonus facts and trivial section. In today's bonus facts and trivial, I would like to speak a bit on the mindset or the psyche of the Chinese people, the Chinese culture. In a way, the story of Jing Wei is pretty popular among the Chinese people, basically because of the moral of the story, which is dogged determination and the spirit of never giving up. This mentality, this mindset, you can say in a way is like hardwired into the Chinese people, the Chinese culture. And in a way you could say that the Chinese people are pretty stubborn. And in case you didn't know, the Chinese lands had been invaded countless times since history, for thousands of years. But the funny thing is, every time a new foreign invader came into China, they ended up being assimilated into the culture. Before the Huns went to the west, they were raiding northern China for hundreds of years. It took hundreds of years from the end of the Warring States period until the beginning of the Han Dynasty, before the Chinese people finally drove the ancestors of the Huns out of the northern Asian steppes, and they started migrating westwards. And whoever were left behind were assimilated, and they became Chinese. And then when it came to the North and South dynasties, North and South kingdoms, and then you have the northern tribal steppes people once again coming down south and effectively conquered half of China up to the Yangtze River region. They lost their culture, they lost their language, they became Chinese. And then later on you have the Mongols Kublai Khan set up the Yuan dynasty and governed China again according to the Chinese system, governing system. And once again, the Mongolians that came into China, they became assimilated and became Sinophile, I guess. And later, the last imperial dynasty was the Manchurians. They came into China and once again, they became Chinese. So the point I'm trying to get at is, there is a reason why the Chinese civilization is the longest lasting, unbroken civilization in the world. Because the people are stubborn and they refuse to give up against all kinds of odds. They just don't give up. And that is something we could all take a leaf out of. If you look at it in a more negative sense, you can say that, they're just stubborn. But this is a people that would never give up and will continue fighting for what they believe in, and they will continue fighting for their own culture and their own identity no matter what you do to them. And that is something for all of us to chew on. Now, moving on to the next point, regarding goddesses and female deities, there is actually quite a strong culture or tradition of female deities and goddesses in Chinese history. There were archaeological sites of the Hongshan culture, or the Red Hill, Red Mountain culture that dates from around 4,900 to about 2,700 BC. Archaeologists actually uncovered shrines and temples from this culture, from these people that were dedicated to goddesses and female deities. And there were stone carvings and stone sculptures of female deities that were used for worship in these temples and shrines. So you could say that there was quite a comprehensive pantheon of female deities by that time. 4,900 BC to 2,700 BC, that is around the Neolithic period. And it's amazing that culture in a way has been so developed by that time, and it was not as patriarchal as society is today. And this shrine to female deities and goddesses is so far, if I'm not wrong, the earliest place of worship that has been uncovered in mainland China up till now. And it actually gave researchers and archaeologists a great resource to study the development and the progress of religions and religious thoughts in prehistoric China. So how about you guys? Is there any interesting stories regarding goddesses or female deities and immortals in your culture? Leave it down in the comment section. I read all the comments that you guys post up, and I usually will reply to all of them. So yeah, just leave the stories down in the comment sections and I'll read them all and I'll get back to you. If you like this video, please, it will help me out a lot if you click the like button. And if you like more content like this, subscribe to the channel. Click the subscribe button and remember to click the bell icon when you do so. So you will be notified whenever a new video drops. And if you'd like to support me or connect with me on other social media platforms, all the links are in the description section below. And I guess that's it for today. And I will see you soon in the next video.